Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, hockey fans. It is a gorgeous 18 degrees Celsius, 60 degrees Fahrenheit. I think that's the first time we've cracked the 60-degree plateau since we started doing the podcast in a bright and breezy Bridgewater, Nova Scotia today. My name is Justin, Bridgewater's Finest on YouTube, Blockbuster_guy on Twitter, and welcome to the Thursday, May 12th edition of the Bridgewater's Finest 2016 NHL Playoffs podcast. So we had Game 7 between St. Louis and Dallas go down last night, and it was not close. The St. Louis Blues clobber the Dallas Stars in Dallas by the tune of 6-1 in a Game 7 situation. Ouch. Not good for the heavily favored Dallas Stars. Shots in this game were 32-19 for Dallas, so St. Louis definitely made the most of their opportunities. The Stars therefore win this series 4-3, and they will host the start of the Western Conference Final between whoever wins tonight between San Jose and Nashville. So just based on the shot totals there, you can tell what the story of this game was. It was a game of opportunistic play for the St. Louis Blues and opportunities lost for the Dallas Stars. St. Louis blocked. They were blocking shots this entire game. Here it is by the numbers. The Blues blocks by period. In the first period, 10 shot blocks. In the second period, 13 shot blocks. In the third period, 11 shot blocks. What this indicated to me was not only was St. Louis committed to keeping the puck away from the net, especially once they got the lead, but that Dallas was unwilling to adapt their game to find a way around it. If they were trying to take shots from the point, those weren't getting through. Get the puck in down low. All of a sudden, they start blocking down low, send it back up. You have to adapt in any sport, or really in anything in life. That's what humans are great at. They're great at adapting. So you got to adapt your game plan to find a way around it, and Dallas was either unable or unwilling to change up the game plan. And I look at a guy like Jamie Benn. He had one shot in this game. It was unreal. St. Louis played an excellent defensive game, don't get me wrong, but at some point through 60 minutes of game time, you got to be able to adjust your game plan and make the changes that you need to generate more offense. In any case, St. Louis really committed to blocking in this game, and there it was displayed by the numbers. Brian Elliott does have to come up and make an early big save on Jason Demers on a 2-on-1, a wrist shot sent across to Demers. He risks it on goal. Elliott with the big save. That's a big confidence boost because obviously Elliott did not play a great Game 6, so this was an excellent bounce-back game for Brian Elliott, making 31 saves for St. Louis. Alex Goligoski takes a holding penalty against Vladimir Tarasenko just 4.5 minutes into this game. Very early power play for St. Louis, and it begins on their third power play shot. 5:23 into the first period, St. Louis on the power play. They get on the board. It's Robby Fabbri, his third goal of these playoffs. Brouwer and Stastny drawing the assists. Stastny puts it into Brouwer in the slot. He puts it on net, and that whole line just crashes the net. Brouwer keeps the puck alive, and Robby Fabbri has it right there on the doorstep. He backhands it home. Fabbri's got the goal, and St. Louis has the lead. One thing that I did note about this game, certainly the beginning of the game, there is very little physical play really to speak of. There's a couple of hits thrown here and there, but neither team really able to establish themselves in terms of the physicality. Much of the early part of this game, it was being played in the neutral zone. It was a lot of dump and chase and back and forth. Very few opportunities, but very few physical moments as well. Dallas does get a minor push beginning here around the middle of the period. Jori Lehtera, by way of that, ends up taking a cross-checking penalty. Dallas generates 2 shots on that power play, but they also have 3 incoming shots blocked by the St. Louis Blues. The physical game starts to pick up a little bit more here as we get later into the first period. Maybe guys just needed to get a little more comfortable in the flow of the game. Brian Elliott comes up with a big save on Radek Faksa. Faksa gets hit behind the net and shortly thereafter ends up taking a penalty versus Steve Ott. So that's some frustrating play coming out there from Radek Faksa. He's an important part of that Dallas offense, so he's now in the box. You have another Vladimir Tarasenko goal that gets called back on an offside. That's the second notable one in these playoffs that he has a goal called back on just just, again, millimeters of offside. But as soon as I saw the play, I was like, that's going to get reviewed, guaranteed. And it did end up getting called back. However, St. Louis, they continue their momentum. They don't let that get them down. 18-22 into the first period, so inside the last 2 minutes of play in the period, St. Louis doubles their lead. It's Paul Stastny. It's his third of these playoffs. Brouwer and Fabbri drawing the assists. They cycle the puck around. It's a nice little tic-tac-toe passing that gets finished off by Paul Stastny. Do not forget the phrase tic-tac-toe, because it's not the last time you're going to hear it in this review for this game. Paul Stastny doubles the Blues lead, and then just over a minute and a half later, in the dying seconds of the period, they triple their lead. 1956. Just 4 seconds left in the first period. St. Louis is now up 3-0. Patrick Berglund, it's his fourth of the playoffs. Jori Lehtera and David Backes draw the assists on that one. They just win a battle. They win a battle on the boards, and it's so important to do, especially this time of year. They win that battle on the boards. The puck gets put back to the point, and Berglund just wrists it home. It's a shot that really Kari Lehtonen probably should have had. I think he lost sight of it, because after it went in, he kind of threw his arms up in the air, like maybe he was screened by his defenseman, but I mean, it couldn't have been that bad, because it wasn't a booming wrist shot or anything like that. It's one that you'd think an NHL goaltender more times than not is going to have. Unfortunately, Lehtonen did not have that one, and Lehtonen just didn't have his game. He was not on his game, really, after that Tarasenko goal that got called back on the offside. That was kind of the moment where you're looking at this and you're like, he doesn't have it. And he ain't going to have it tonight. And now, unfortunately, for Dallas and for Dallas fans, they're in a 3-0 hole at the end of the first period. And just like I said in yesterday's episode, we saw Antti Niemi. Antti Niemi starts the second period for Dallas, as I said he would. However, it did what it's supposed to do. You change your goaltender, it's supposed to give the team in front of him some momentum, and that's what it does. It does generate a bit of a Dallas push off of the goaltending change. Dallas generating some opportunities here. Brian Elliott comes up with some good saves on Ales Hemsky as well as Antoine Roussel, and then in a scramble in front of his net, he absolutely robs Colton Sceviour. That is highway robbery, larceny at its finest in the game of hockey. Sceviour's got the puck, and he's got basically a wide open net. He can't elevate the puck, and Elliott just sprawls out and just gets it with the toe. What a great save. Definitely the play of the game right there. And if you're looking for your hashtag game breaker, hashtag game changer, whatever you want to call it, it was that right there, because that would have made the game 3-1. And 3-1 is not ridiculous. I mean, 3-1, you can come back, certainly from 3-1, but Brian Elliott just made an unbelievable save there. And Colton Sceviour, a guy that I said could be a game breaker for Dallas, but he gets absolutely robbed right there. And that really did change the flow of the game. Colton Parayko, then actually a few seconds after that, blocking a shot from Cody Eakin. St. Louis transitions it down the ice, and what do you know? Before you know it, wouldn't you know who won the pony? 3 minutes and 50 seconds into the second period, St. Louis is now up 4. David Backes, it's his 6th goal of these playoffs. Patrick Berglund and Colton Parayko draw the assists. A beautiful lead pass from Berglund. Well, first of all, Parayko blocks the shot, and he's the one that actually ends up sending the puck up to Patrick Berglund. Berglund doesn't have a lot of space, so he just puts it into an open area. And this is the kind of things that coaches preach all the time. Berglund just puts the puck up a little bit ahead of his incoming player into an open area. David Backes catches up to it, a nice little lead pass, and a wrist shot from the dot that Antti Niemi, one more time, you'd probably hope an NHL goaltender is going to stop that more times than not. I don't know if it handcuffed him. I'm not sure what it was, but I mean, it was a good wrist shot and it was a bit of a bouncing puck, so I understand it. I mean, I'm certainly not an NHL goaltender, so who am I to criticize? But again, it's one of those ones that you'd like to have your goaltender to have. Antti Niemi does not have it, and all of a sudden, St. Louis has blown this thing open, and it's 4-0. Despite St. Louis making the most of their opportunities, I do have to give Dallas credit because they honestly, really at no point in this game did the team appear to give up. Now, the fans gave up, after the 4-0 goal, I saw a lot of fans get up and leave, which, you pay, and this is like lower bowl tickets, you pay hundreds of dollars probably actually, for lower bowl playoff tickets to a Game 7, something that probably sold out in the matter of a couple of minutes. And I don't care how bad your team's. I don't care if the team's losing 10-0. You don't get up and leave. You paid that money. You support this team clearly, unless you're just one of these fake fans that has more money than brains, which maybe that was the case in Dallas. Who knows? But I mean, you don't get up. You don't leave. If any of you who left the game early are listening to this, shame on you. You shouldn't have left the game. Anyways, Dallas actually did a pretty decent job of applying fairly consistent pressure on St. Louis. A lot of the rest of this game was played in St. Louis's defensive end, and Steve Ott ends up taking a penalty. This is an opportunity. This is an opportunity for the Stars to get something going. They generate 8 shot attempts on the power play. Only 4 of them actually get through for shots. There's 2 missed nets. You got 2 St. Louis blocks, but they did get 4 shots on that power play. Elliott coming up big just shortly after the power play, I believe. I think the power play had expired. Very shortly after that, on a Jason Spezza tip, they're crashing the net. The puck does squirt loose, but the referee called the play dead. So maybe a bit of an early whistle there. There's an argument there to be made for Stars fans and Stars players. There's a bit of an argument to be made there, but play gets whistled dead. But Brian Elliott coming up with a big save on Jason Spezza. After that penalty kill, St. Louis has a bit of a short burst of momentum here. Antti Niemi making a couple of decent saves there. But again, it's a matter of St. Louis taking advantage, being opportunistic with the opportunities that presented themselves. 15:06 into the second period, we got our 5th goal on the board, 5 unanswered for the Blues. It's Troy Brouwer. It's his 5th of these playoffs. Fabbri and Stastny draw the assists on that one. Robby Fabbri, with that assist, now has 10 assists in these playoffs. Not too bad for a guy playing his first, decent playoff series. Robby Fabbri with 10 assists so far. Fabbri and Stastny again draw the assists on that one, and it's just more like Harlem Globetrotter, tic-tac-toe rush passing. Just a great play from St. Louis. Bing, bang, boom. A wrist shot from Brouwer. It's in the net. Niemi had very little chance on that one. It is now 5-0 St. Louis. Late second period, St. Louis takes another penalty, another opportunity for Dallas, but they generate, again, just 2 shots on the power play on 5 attempts. 2 of those shot attempts, missing the net. Dallas had a few too many missed nets for my liking, and it wasn't like they were like, oh, it's off the post. It's like, no, it's just plain wide of the net or over the net. So, I mean, you can't blame them gripping their sticks a little hard in a big hole in an elimination game. It's understandable. Just had a few too many for my liking. Little bit of pendulum play opens up the third period. Dallas finally makes good on one of their opportunities. 5:15 into the third period. Dallas is on the board. They get a little bit of respectability back there. It's Patrick Eaves. It's his 3rd goal of these playoffs. Goligoski and Oduya draw the assists on that one. It's a point shot from Goligoski, which gets deflected by, I think it was Edmondson out in front of the St. Louis net. It it shoots right to the stick of Patrick Eaves at the side of the net, and that's what you do, kids. Stick on the ice, be ready for rebounds. Patrick Eaves has very little time to react to this, but he still finds the puck and slams it home behind Brian Elliott, who was obviously, squared up to try to stop the shot from the point. Dallas is on the board. It is now 5-1. Dallas gets another great chance just seconds later. Patrick Sharp gets sent in, partial breakaway, kind of rushing it up the middle. Brian Elliott bobbles it a little bit, but makes the save. So Dallas starting to get these opportunities, but even still, to this point, we're talking about early to mid-third period. Even still, by this point, the Stars cannot find a way to avoid these Blues shot blockers. They're not getting, they're getting consistent pressure, but they're not getting consistency in their opportunities. It's never more than 1 shot at a time. The second one always gets blocked, and then all of a sudden, bloop, it seems like it's out of the zone. So the Stars, they're getting good pressure, but they're just not getting consistency in the chances that they're trying to develop. They are still getting consistent pressure, but there is enough of a back and forth here. Like St. Louis always seems to come up with that one play to get the puck out of the zone just long enough that they can get a change in. It never really felt like the St. Louis defenders were, worn out, or, oh God, we got caught on an icing and we were totally out of gas. I never got that impression through the majority of this game. So St. Louis played well enough defensively to get the puck out of their zone, get a change in, and it always seemed like they were keeping their players fresh. This was arguably where St. Louis really won this game. Dallas pulls Antti Niemi with around 6 minutes left. It's like Patrick Waugh on steroids, but you can understand why. They're obviously in desperation mode here. Like, one goal can still, pull it to 3, and, I mean, stranger things have happened, right? But 15-20 into the third period, St. Louis into the empty net. It's Tarasenko. He gets that goal back from the one that got called back earlier. It's his 7th of the playoffs. Schwartz and Shattenkirk draw the assists on that one. It was actually a nice little play to get Tarasenko up to the empty net. He scores. It's now 6-1 for St. Louis, and Dallas ends the game very fittingly given how they played the majority of it. Their last 3 shot attempts, 2 of them are blocked, and 1 misses the net wide. And that's just a very fitting way for Dallas's game to end, a fitting way for their series and season to end, given how they played in this Game 7. For St. Louis, it was the line of Robby Fabbri-Troy Brouwer, and Paul Stastny who came up monstrous. They accounted for 3 of the 6 goals scored by St. Louis, and combined those 3 players for 9 points. So what an unbelievable performance there by St. Louis. They get it done 6-1, and they will host the winner of San Jose and Nashville tonight in Game 7. No real significant pieces of news coming out of the NHL offices yesterday, but they did announce the conference finals scheduling. So let's talk about that for a little bit, because it is going to have an impact on what you're going to hear on tomorrow's episode of the podcast. So Pittsburgh and Tampa Bay open in Pittsburgh tomorrow night. And the St. Louis series versus either Nashville or San Jose, depending on who wins tonight's game, that series is going to open up on Sunday in St. Louis. Therefore, here's what you're going to hear on tomorrow's episode. Tomorrow's episode, we're going to open with reviewing San Jose and Nashville Game 7. We're going to do our Western Conference Round 2 review like we did yesterday with the Eastern Conference. Then we're going to preview the entirety of the third round, the Eastern Conference and Western Conference Final. We're going to preview both of those series, and we're going to tee up and preview Tampa Bay and Pittsburgh Game 1, which goes down tomorrow night. So that's what you can expect to hear on tomorrow's episode. It's going to be jam-packed, a full episode. But what that does mean is it does actually leave a little bit of a hole for Saturday's episode. Since there's not going to be any game Saturday night, because we got Friday, and then the Western Conference Final doesn't begin until Sunday. So we're going to have a bit of a hole on Saturday's episode. I've got something kind of special planned for you guys, something totally different here that still fits the theme, obviously, of an NHL podcast, but we're going to take a little bit of time, and I'm going to keep it as a surprise. There's your intrigue to watch Saturday's episode. I got a little bit of a surprise lined up for you, so make sure that you tune in for that. Okay, folks, we'll close her down today by teeing up Game 7. Nashville and San Jose goes down tonight from the Shark Tank. Series tied at 3 games apiece. This game gets underway at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. It's available on Sportsnet in Canada, as well as NBCSN in the United States. Pekka Rinne, Martin Jones, obviously, they're going to be your goaltenders. They've been in there the entire series. They've been playing well the entire series, and that's just going to be our last chance, in fact, to see this treat of a goaltending matchup. So make 1,000% sure that you tune in for this game tonight, because you won't see this again until next season. In terms of lineup decisions, Matt Nieto is really the only injury-related question mark for either team. He's a question mark for San Jose. He might go, he might not. There hasn't been any kind of announcement on it yet. If he doesn't go, Tommy Wingels would slot back into the lineup, probably on that 4th line for the Sharks. Now, we're taking a look at Pekka Rinne. I just mentioned him there before. Pekka Rinne, obviously, Nashville's on the road in an elimination scenario. They faced this in Anaheim in round 1, and they won. They came up with a big game in Anaheim, and Pekka Rinne played very well in that elimination game. You take a look at Pekka Rinne on the road so far in these playoffs. He's got a .915 save percentage. That's good enough to win most nights. However, I take a look at in this series in San Jose, he's only got an .897. That's a problem in the playoffs. 1 of every 10 shot attempts is going to go in. You think San Jose's probably pretty well a lock to get 30 shots. Most games in this series, I believe they've gotten to that 30-shot plateau at least. So now you're talking about, based on the numbers, giving up 3 goals. So if you give up 3 goals, that's going to put your offense in a situation where now they've got to beat Martin Jones 3 times. And that's not the easiest thing in the world to do in these playoffs. So you're going to need Nashville. You're going to need Pekka Rinne. Pekka Rinne needs to step up in this game. Step up based on how he has played in San Jose in this series. He needs to have his best game in San Jose that he has had this entire series. If he does not do that, Predators are going home. Your game breakers here for the Predators, it's very obvious. It's that Mike Fisher, Colin Wilson, James Neal line. I mean, that's their top line, and it's nice because they're able to roll that quote-unquote top line out against not necessarily the best defenders for the San Jose Sharks. Most of that attention is being given to, or, it still likely is being given to that top line with Filip Forsberg and Ryan Johansson. But I mean, that's not the line that's producing. It's the Fisher, Wilson, Neal line that's producing, and they're putting up huge numbers. Makes me really wish I would have taken a flyer on some of them in my playoff pool, which right now is absolutely decimated. But Mike Fisher, Colin Wilson, James Neal, they're definitely the game breakers here for the Nashville Predators. On San Jose's side, and I've talked about it a little bit earlier, I really like the potential of that line 1 left winger, the one that's playing up there with Thornton and Pavelski. I love that player to be able to get lost in here and get some opportunities to do some big damage. Most of this series, that's been Thomas Hertl. Now, Hertl's got 7 points in the... he's got 5 points, I think, only in the playoffs. But the left winger on the second line, Joonas Donskoi, is outscoring him right now. So I don't know if that's just a matter of added chemistry with Logan Couture, or if Joonas Donskoi is just a better player and should be playing on the first line. I wouldn't be surprised to see Joonas Donskoi get some ice time with that top line, since he has been outperforming Thomas Hertl in these playoffs. I would love to see Donskoi get some time on that top line. And if he does, I think Joonas Donskoi could be a game breaker in this series, because obviously you have to pay such huge attention to Joe Pavelski. You have to pay such huge attention to Joe Thornton. You have to pay attention to Brent Burns and limit his space when he's out there with those guys. A guy like Joonas Donskoi and a guy like Thomas Hertl, although he hasn't really displayed it so far in these playoffs, that guy can get lost, because there's only so many defenders on the ice. He can get lost, and he can do some damage. So whether it's Thomas Hertl or whether it's Joonas Donskoi, I'm looking for that line 1 left winger to do some major damage tonight. Just like I did with Dallas-St. Louis Game 7, we're going to look at the home versus away records so far in these playoffs. Now, Nashville has more road experience in these playoffs than does San Jose at home, but the two pictures are very different. San Jose is 4-1 at home so far in these playoffs. They are very, very dominant thus far at home. Nashville is just 3-4 on the road. Now, what that means is, obviously, Nashville has played 7 road games. They're about to play their 8th. Yes, they did beat Anaheim 3 times in Anaheim. But thus far, they are winless in San Jose against the Sharks in this series. This has been a home team series the entire way, and I like it to stay that way. I took San Jose to win this series. You know what? I will be the first one to admit that I discounted the Nashville Predators unfairly. When I said San Jose in 5, that was probably offensive to Nashville fans, and I apologize for that, because Nashville has shown up and they have played a hell of a series. I just think, well, obviously it ends tonight, but I think it ends poorly for them tonight. I like San Jose at home to beat the Nashville Predators. I'm going to give it to them by the same score I gave it to St. Louis against Dallas last night. I said it was going to be 4-2. That's how I'm going to go for San Jose as well. I like San Jose to win this game 4-2, win this series 4-3, and go on to face the St. Louis Blues for the Western Conference Championship. Boy, what a story that is, eh? You take the 2 Western Conference teams that are arguably the most synonymous with playoff lack of success, San Jose and St. Louis, and you try to go back 6 months and say San Jose and St. Louis are going to be the two teams in the Western Conference Final, see how many people would have laughed you out of whatever room you were in. All right, folks, that's going to do it for the Thursday, May 12th edition of the Bridgewater's Finest 2016 NHL Playoffs podcast. Once again, Game 7 tonight between San Jose and Nashville. Make sure you don't miss it. Your last chance to take a look at Pekka Rinne versus Martin Jones, which has been a hell of a goaltending series. And honestly, I would expect these guys in the lineup tonight, no matter who wins in the handshake lineup after the game, just big hugs. Just like, what a series. Like, what a treat it was to play opposite the other guy, because this has just been a series of unbelievable goaltending. It's unfortunate that it has to come to an end, but what the hell. I would have much preferred this to be the Western Conference Final based on the way that the goaltending is played out. But in any case, that's it for me, Justin, Bridgewater's Finest on YouTube, Blockbuster_guy on Twitter. Thursday is in the books. Thank you very much, and we'll see you again on Friday.